All right. Good afternoon, evening, or night, wherever you are. This is Humanize IT. Skip Ziegler back on here again.
Yeah.
And today we're talking about something we released recently, and that's our Open AI letter. I was noticing a lot recently that people are like, "Oh, we now integrate with AI. It can now give you product breakdowns. It can give you, it's going to read all your data and come up with examples." And I was talking to Skip and Richard. I was like, harking back to the .com era when, hey, you know what we could do? We can integrate our websites with our SQL database, and we can give people direct information on how much products cost and
Yeah.
inventory and all this other stuff.
Mm.
And it caused some problems.
Yeah. You ever heard of SQL injections?
Yeah, like SQL injections are my favorite example here. Like just completely bypassing all security and getting SA rights to your database
Mhm.
from anywhere in the world. I mean, this
Yeah.
is before we'd learn a lot of things like geofencing on our websites and, but today we know we have a lot more clever of an attack group than we did back then. Or I should at least say, not more clever, but there are more of them. So
Mhm.
when you make a mistake, the time to exploitation is much faster because there's a lot more people trying. We got state
Yeah.
actors, we've got private actors, we've got people just wanting to just ruin your day.
Yeah. Just all of that
and
is well developed, you know?
and
It's
when
it's
they
been through some cycles.
Yep.
Um, and so that is a really, really important element. They're the things that you don't know.
Yeah.
I think, I've already forgotten it, although it wasn't that long ago, the do not know matrix, right? About the knowns and unknowns and unknown unknowns and all that kind of stuff. And sometimes you just need some time to work through those. And I think we're at a very critical spot with AI in that the potential is huge, but that known and unknown matrix still has a lot of work to be done to make some really good progress, I think.
Yeah. And it's the arrogance, right? That I think everybody needs to look out for here. We looked at integrating with AI via our Florala editor back in 2024.
Hmm.
Just saw a really good opportunity to help people type out product recommendations, opportunities, and things like that. Just really just making things easier. But as we dove into it, as our developers dove into it, we found out that API keys are getting past plain text.
Ooh,
And we're like,
yeah.
yeah, pass.
Yeah.
But the guy's thinking about more like, okay, is AI ready yet? And the answer in my mind is no. From an integration standpoint, it's a backdoor into your data that we don't quite understand yet. We don't have security protocols in place yet. Now there are some good companies coming out right now that will help with this and will get us there. And we're working on this concept that we need to get this proven set going where we are stopping attacks, where
Hmm.
these LLM directed attacks are or LLM jacking, things like that are being stopped because we have good practices. And a lot of that just takes time.
No.
I like LLMs. I use them every day. I
Yeah.
use
I do too.
Claude and Perplexity. For anybody who wants to know what I do, what I use them every single day. And they save me a lot of time. But I also don't know if I want to hook those into my IDE or my code base or my or Humanize IT as a software platform
Yeah.
because I don't have the confidence that the LLM Claude or the LLM Perplexity are able to secure the data because
Yeah.
I don't understand from a computer science standpoint. And I have probably more understanding than most engineers out there of how these data structures work just as a computer scientist.
Hmm.
We studied them, but that was like late 90s. I read through a lot of the documentation and I get neural networking. I get that stuff, but I don't have the confidence yet. And I think a lot of that comes from that .com era, right? We're like,
Oh,
"Oh,
yeah.
we're gonna integrate with SQL, but it's gonna be completely safe because we have these safeguards in place."
Yeah.
And I mean, it was SQL injection was so prevalent that I, as like a nobody, knew how to do SQL injection. If I got to a website and I was trying to figure out how to get in, like I couldn't log in, I just fine, I'll just SQL inject because it was easier than remembering my password.
That's pretty bad.
That's how bad it was. It
Yep.
was that easy that on a whim. Like, and these are legitimate, like, sites, like, and I remember writing several of them saying, "Hey, look, just letting you know that I wasn't able to log in today, but I was able to use a SQL injection to get past your logon prompt. You might want to clean your data inputs."
Yep.
And you know, I get invited to barbecues. I got like a lot of like I should go back and see if I can find some of those emails, but they're at places that don't work anymore.
Yep.
And, it was just funny, like, you know, people are like, "Oh, thank you for letting us know." Like, they didn't know, and it's been going on for years, how much of their data have been stolen because they don't have an IDS telling them any
Mm.
data leaving their environment.
Yeah.
So, with an LLM, I think a lot of people are gonna be LLM jacked, and they're not even gonna know.
Ooh. Yeah.
And it's just
Yeah.
the data is just gonna be out there, but how do you detect that? And these are questions we need to be asking today. And
Yep.
so with Humanize IT, Skip and I, we've been increasing the number of API integrations our software does.
Mhm.
And so does an LLM get access to all of that now?
Yeah.
How do we control that data flow? And how do we detect LLM jacking? These are questions we need to be asking. I think a lot of people, a lot of vendors out there in their arrogance are saying, oh, it's secure.
Yeah.
And they're just
Mhm.
dismissing it and integrating right in there and showing their clients the feature set. And when they get hacked, they're like, oh, we didn't know.
Yeah. And that's, there's a couple of areas there that really come in, and security is often, broken down to the weakest link. And so when you have this interconnected network of data, and the the LLM has access to this, it's the single point of failure that brings everything down. When somebody gets in and can do things they shouldn't, they now have access to all of that information, and that can be really, really damaging.
Yeah.
So, but I want to go back a little bit. You were looking at, some of the AI stuff from the coding and very structured approach, security focus. There's another element too. So I've been using ChatGPT and Claude. All right, so I bounce between those two, and I I get I get a lot out of it. Much like I use them heavily. They help a lot, but they are a never-ending source of frustration as well, because they just get things wrong. For me, being a bit more specific in some things, I have very methodically kind of put some data in there and wanted to get some answers out. And so I know the data going in and the answers coming out aren't correct. Right. And that really, really bothers me. Now, if
Yeah.
you aren't as familiar with that data going in to your models and your usage of AI, how confident can you be in that data coming out? Typically, yes, it's pretty good. All right. But if you're, let's just say some random deal, you're having AI answer a question. All right. What is your satisfaction level of its accuracy rate? If it's only 50-50, we can probably, everybody say, no, that's not good enough. Right. But where does it get good enough? Is 80%
Yeah.
okay? Maybe. But what happens with those 20% answers that are wrong? What's the impact to your organization on that? How do you deal with those? Right? If you've got an employee that gives an incorrect response to a client, you probably have means and history of dealing with those situations. How do you do that now if your tool is giving an incorrect response to a client? What do you do in those situations? And to be honest, we just haven't gone through those processes yet. Full disclosure, I do not expect AI to always be perfect. All right. Data in, data out, garbage in, garbage out. And all of our data sets is a mix between the two, right? There's not a perfectly clean data set out there of any meaningful size. So but what do we do with that? And we just haven't walked through that maturity with AI yet. And
Yeah.
I think there are going to be some probably highlighted failures of people jumping out there. I know for us internally, what I've seen, we use HubSpot, and they very early on in the AI boom, they got on that bandwagon, and there was an AI agent in HubSpot. And supposedly you could go in there, you could ask it to do things, and it would actually great concept. It would actually go out and manipulate the area I was working in was reports. It would build these reports. It would access these different features within HubSpot and do all these things that I had been painfully clicking through manually myself. And I thought, this is great. And so I go out there and I have it, you know, generate me this report. It was crap. There was nothing in there that I was looking for, right?
But it
And
was
since
cool.
it was really cool, but since then, HubSpot has, completely removed that feature. They replaced it with another one. I very much expect they learned some great lessons, and that was good. But I also wonder, what happened during that. Um, that was a powerful, powerful tool. I haven't heard anything or read anything. If anybody knows, please let me know. Did HubSpot really have a serious issue with that? Did somebody, s- you know, HubSpot AI tool do something disastrous? I don't know. They may have just learned that, hey, this isn't ready. But part of me wonders, ooh, I wonder if something really bad happened, right?
Yeah.
Uh, eh, you know, but anyway, they learned and they've moved on. They've got a totally different tool out there now. You know, doesn't do what it did before, but what it does now, I think, is a little bit better. Um, so it's just a process, and I think we're all going to have to work carefully to make sure that we're we're going through the process. It's not an instant fix.
Yeah, and, we get this rush of, "Hey, I'm gonna do this right now. I'm gonna beat everybody to the punch," and, you kinda get this little bit of arrogance in saying, "Oh, I know what I'm doing. I've been through
Mm,
this before. I blah, blah, blah," and, like, you start justifying. And I know because 'cause I've been there, right? And you justify and you justify until at the end you have this thing that you put in place. And for me, like if it was just my data inside my tool, I probably would lean more towards accepting the risk for the sake of making things better for my clients. Right?
yeah,
Our software natively does not have a lot of PII or exploitable data.
yeah, yeah.
However, the the main issue is that we have API calls. We have access to
Mhm.
other systems.
Yep,
And we know that in the past, like HVAC systems have
yeah,
been used to exploit networks.
yeah,
We know that people have been using other systems as back doors. So why aren't we in the MSP or the IT community asking these questions about AI when we say, hey, oh, you use AI in your software? How are you preventing LLM jacking? How are you preventing backdoors into my other softwares? Because as an MSP, multi-service provider, you've got a lot of
mhm,
APIs going on, and you got this tangled web. And I bet you none of you have a Visio or a diagram showing data flows between all of your disparate tools,
mhm.
which makes it an easy thing
I
for
do.
attackers to come through and say, "Where are data flows going?" Now we do because we're a software company. It's
That was one of the
integral
first things
to
I
who
did.
we are. But I remember being in the IT department
Mm.
thinking like, "Okay, where are exfiltration points?" As a cybersecurity advisor to, critical infrastructure, I had to ask where the data exfiltration points. Now, if I ask the critical infrastructure guys where their exfiltration points are, I gotta buckle down with a big cup of coffee because
Yeah,
they know they mouse hole in and out of every building,
yeah,
every cable, every piece of tape that's moved, they know. Now, I talked to the internal IT guys. They're like, "Well, we got a firewall, we've got,
Yeah.
they're trying to go off of memory. And so we need to be more like the critical infrastructure guys, where we know, okay,
Mhm.
this goes here, and here's our mappings. Because when I bring in this LLM and it starts learning the mappings, we start getting these clever LLMs that will learn our environment. Oh my gosh, you just created um a basically a user in your environment that does not have ethics.
Yeah.
Somebody
Absolutely.
comes in and convinces them it's the right person. Be like, "Oh, yes, let me tell you all about the financial data in this department."
Uh-huh.
Hey, and, Karen over there stores all of the, credit card numbers in a plain text file because it's easier for her to copy and paste her vacation schedule.
Yeah,
We all know what we're talking about here. Like,
that's
now we
true.
have one entity in one central point that has access to all this information.
Yeah.
How are we securing it? These are questions that we as an industry have to ask. We've been through this before. The dot com all the way through 2010, I'll say. Oh, well, we're going to
Mm.
widen that window from 98 to 2010, a 12-year
Yeah.
period where we started getting into virtualization, where we started getting into application streaming, where we really started meshing things around. We learned some serious things back then
Yep.
on hey, let's make sure that we have this in place because we've been burnt before. We've seen companies go under because
Mhm.
they had arrogance around they thought everything was fine or they had ignorance where they didn't think it through.
Yep. Yeah, the dot com, I see so many similarities between AI and the dot com era. And I remember from a kind of just basic financial perspective around that time, that it was the first time in my career that I actually had a little extra money. All right. So I was, I had a good salaried job then, benefits, the whole nine yards. And there was a little bit of money left over that, we were just putting into savings. And I was thinking, maybe I should look into investing this, right? And so the stock market, obviously. And I'm looking at these IPOs that are coming out, all of these Silicon Valley startups. And I'm thinking, I'm an IT guy. What is it? Warren Buffett's investing advice, invest in a product or a business. All right. And so I'm thinking, I'll listen to that. I'm an IT guy. I should be able to dig in and, make some reasonable sort of guesses here about where these things are going. And I remember looking at company after company after company going, that's really cool stuff, but how are they going to make money? And there would be literally no business plan for these guys to profit off of this. I'm like, so if I give you money, how am I going to get my investment back? And so I was really struggling with this, and I hit on one that I really did know, and that was Cisco. And so this is a little bit of my forecast on AI coming up. I looked at Cisco and I was like, all right, I understand this. I'm doing a lot of networking right now. And I started diving in, and I forget what the range, the window was, but it was like 3 or 4 years of quarterly postings, right? Where Cisco was posting profits and growth, successful quarter after successful quarter after successful quarter. I was like, all right, all right. I think Cisco's it. But I was just so unsure about that entire environment that I held off on doing anything. I'm kind of glad I did because before too long, the bubble burst. And I kept following that, and I noticed that Cisco, while a successful company posting profits over and over and over again, went down along with everybody else in the bust of the dot com era. Now, why? Well, they were wrapped up in that. And so I think there is going to be some sort of, pop to the AI bubble. And when you're on that downward trend, do you know that you're still on the right track? Cisco's obviously still around today. Their business team was probably managing that well enough, right? And they're now still a successful company. But if we're putting all of this effort into AI and we don't really understand what we're doing with it, how well are you going to be able to manage a down cycle in this when an event happens, when AI starts cracking, all of our firewalls or whatever it is, right? How are we going to manage that if we don't already know what's in play, if we're not understanding and being able to talk to our clients and our internal stakeholders? I imagine, much like Cisco's board meetings, they probably sat in front of their investors and said, "Hey, look, we know the market is going down. Our stock price has taken a hit, but our company is still solid. Here's our
Yep.
plan. Here's how we're managing it." All right. Are we going to be in the same place with a similar AI sort of event? And I think we have to think about that before we get too heavily invested
Yeah.
in riding the bubble up.
Now, don't get me wrong, like, if you read the open AI letter we have, it I wrap up with, like, we're not resisting or preventing AI.
Right.
We're not saying
Right.
don't do it. We're just asking everybody to stop and think.
Yes.
And we're planning on doing AI integration. There's just too much good to happen
Right.
from AI integration. But stop and think. Ask people who are experts what they consider to be pertinent questions and safeguards. And maybe we'll have some people on here on the podcast in a few weeks to really talk about that. But I just want everybody to really focus on, if you don't feel like you are prepared to ask questions around AI security, how do you think your clients feel?
Oh, that's really good. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
we are plugged into IT. We understand technology. And this thing came out and you're like, well, I'm just not an expert in it. If you're not an expert, how do your clients feel? Like, I
Yeah.
sat at Cigar Lounge just this week, and I sat down and I talked to all these business people. We were just sitting around having these really handcrafted cigars. They were glorious. It was an event like that, but then the subject of AI came up,
Mm.
and people are just lost. I mean, absolutely lost when it comes to what AI is. Like, they think ChatGPT is all AI is.
Mhm.
And these are people that run companies. These are people that are very smart. They are very capable humans, and they are very concerned with how to use AI appropriately. And they're asking these questions. And I'm like, man, I should probably get on some boards and start answering these questions.
Yep.
And, it just got to the point where, like, I am not an expert. I understand the difference between me and an expert in AI, and there's a
Mhm.
big gap there.
Yep.
But that gap is even bigger between me and business owners who are trying to figure this stuff out
Yep.
and are just getting bombarded every day with, if you're not doing AI, you're behind. Just like in the dot com, they're like, if you're not doing Web 2.0, if you don't have a web app, you're behind. And
Yep.
you're watching all of these car dealerships just put their inventory online and direct link straight into their point of sale systems, and they're getting insane sales. Yeah, they're gonna get hacked, but
Yep.
do they care at that time? No, because our sales are going through the roof. These
Yep.
business people are like, "Okay, I need to get involved with AI because we saw what happened in the dot com, and I don't wanna be left behind."
Mhm.
And they're asking these same questions. So you, believe it or not knowing much about AI, are still an expert compared to
Yes.
businesses, and you need to be asking these questions. Use your history of when new applications come out, new things like hypervisors.
Yeah.
You were there. Remember when
Mhm.
the dot com came out and we started connecting SQL up to HTML. You were there, you remember the lessons learned. This is not much different. We still want to use these things that are gonna be great opportunities, but we want to use them in a safe fashion of lessons learned so that our clients are prepared to
Yes.
accept or take on risk based upon what the ROI is gonna be. They can do the IRI calculations, but you have to feed them the information on what do they need to know.
And I think that's an important analogy to embrace. So, what to do about AI? My response is get involved, start
Yep.
working with it. I mean, there are none of you out there who became expert network engineers by reading a book, right, or listening to a lecture,
Oh,
right?
come on. You know as well as I know there are plenty of paper certified people out there.
Oh yeah, you all know those. All right. You got to where you are because you did it.
Yep.
and you all also know someone else that is way beyond you, right? Adam, you and I had an opportunity to sit down and have a very, very lengthy, very, very casual, informal conversation with a true AI expert,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
We learned a lot, but we both recognize that he is, a bona fide expert in AI. But just that conversation, our getting involved with it, taking what he said, bringing it back, doing things internally have taken us up a notch. So to reinforce what you were saying, yes, your clients are even more unaware of all of these issues than you are. So you have a responsibility in your job to be, prepared and understand that. And the best way is to do it.
Yep.
But don't go crazy with it, right? If you're experimenting with firewalls, back in the day. All right. And you're like, oh, yeah, these firewalls are going to be cool. And you just throw one in there and, you get network address translation set up. You're like, all right, that's great. I got my one, valid IP. Everybody internally is good, but I don't know what to do with these routes, or the filters, I'm struggling with this. I haven't learned this yet. I think I'll just do
Any.
IP any. That'll work, right?
It works.
No, so yeah, it worked, but the consequences of those, and so we need to do the exact same thing with
Yep.
with AI. Don't go down the IP any route with AI.
But it works. And those are the lessons that you know by
Yep,
heart as a
yep,
seasoned IT professional that your clients don't and these junior IT people don't. They
hmm
don't remember the IP NEIs. They
yep,
don't remember shadowed rules that just wrecked your day. They don't remember SQL injection. They don't remember hypervisors that got hijacked.
yep,
They don't remember a lot of this stuff. You do. And the same trepidation that you feel thinking about those is what you need to apply to AI today.
yep,
We don't want to prevent it, but we need to guide this way. We need to guide this in a way where we as seasoned professionals are able to help our clients understand and make good decisions going forward.
yep. That's it.
All right, everyone, that's our take on AI. Be careful.
Yeah, that's it. See ya.